Dan is running for office. We're very, very lucky to have him here. Unfortunately, I should say Militia is a little bit busy. He was slated to be here with us asking questions, but he has some obligations. And I'll give it to Dan real quick to introduce himself.
Thanks, man. Well, my name is Dan Whitfield, and I am running for the U.S. Senate to be your senator over in Arkansas. I'm running against Senator John Bozeman. A lot of people actually don't know who my opponent, John Bozeman, is, but that doesn't make him any less dangerous towards the common good because he still does. I'm sure most of y'all know who Tom Cotton is, and he is our other senator here in Arkansas. And John Bozeman votes 99% of the time alongside Tom Cotton. So even though we may not know who he is by name, it's still just as important that we vote these guys out. I'm a progressive working class candidate. I work in IT and specialize in automation for. I'll leave my company name out of it. Um, and I'm a student pursuing my bachelor's degree in information systems. I've finished three associate's degrees now, and magna cum laude. So I take my school as seriously as possible. Being a father, a husband, a candidate, and a working class person, it's definitely not easy. But this conversation is more for cryptocurrency and for the future of blockchain here in America and also around the world because we've been seeing different foreign nations banning like Binance and banning crypto mining and different things like that. And a lot of that is solely to protect the special interests of the ultra rich. They don't want the working class guy. They don't want the little guy making enough money that we don't have to go work for those crappy two, three, four, five, $10 an hour jobs. They want us poor. They want us working our entire lives until what is the retirement age? I mean, we have a lot of 60, 70, even 80-year-old Americans still working just to pay bills and get by because they've been doing everything that they've been told their entire lives. We're taught young, you work hard, and eventually, if you work hard, you can retire. Well, unfortunately, the retirement age is getting direly close to the average life expectancy age. So there are a lot of things that we need to talk about on how to improve the quality of life for Americans and how to make it so that we can actually have the opportunity and chance of obtaining financial independence and financial freedom. And cryptocurrency has really been the route that many people have been able to take to obtain that financial freedom. And a lot of those special interests will continue to do everything they can to keep that from happening.
That is awesome. Thank you, Dan. I'll start with the first two questions. First question, Dan. Could you ex- could you, could you explain for people who might know nothing of politics what the role is that you are running for, how it fits in the political system, and what your responsibilities would be?
Sure. So we have three branches of government. We have the executive branch, we have the legislative branch, and we have the judicial branch. And the position I'm running for in the US Senate is a federal position, and it's one of the two branches of Congress. In Congress, the legislative branch, we have the House, which are going to be your normal representatives and congressmen, and we have the Senate, which are going to be basically the same representatives as well. It's just a higher level of Congress. And it's a little bit different because Congress, the House, is supposed to be more equal representation. The more population in your state, the more House members you'll have representing their districts. Whereas in the US Senate, we have representation equal between the states, where every state will have two US senators. And that's why, we'll have states like Wyoming, who have a much lower population, but they still have two U.S. senators to help keep a equal representation for their state. Now, as a U.S. senator, like I said, my job will be representation. Um, the old way of thinking was okay, well, your senator, they're going to serve a 6 year term And these are going to be the people that know what's best for us. They're going to be the ones who ultimately decide whether or not something is a good idea or a bad idea, regardless of what their constituents think. And I believe that's an old way of politics, an old way of thinking. And I really want to be a what they would call a delegate representative, a representative that listens to their constituents and extends the voices of their constituents into the legislative process, because it has historically been what they would call a trustee position, where these people believe they know best and they do what they think is best. But when all of this was created, when the Constitution was written and we created our branches of our government, times were a lot different. Uh, Back then, if a great example would be the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham Lincoln, signed this and put this order into effect in 1863. But because of the problems and the lack of communication and how long it took for communication to travel, the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed slaves, actually freed slaves for the southern states, not the northern states. But this information didn't make it into Texas until Juneteenth, which was June 19th, 1865. It took 2 years for the southern slaves that had been freed to find out that they were freed because of how long it took for information to travel. And that was part of the reason why it was important to have people who thought they knew what was best making these decisions. But nowadays, with the freedom of information we have at our fingertips, like, I mean, I'm doing an interview right now online for anyone around the world to listen to on a cell phone. Um, Times are changing. We may not necessarily know what is best for families if we don't understand what those families are going through. And that's why I think those families should be the final say and should be represented properly. Um, as a delegate representative, I will be listening to my constituents, to the people of Arkansas, and of course, the people of our entire country. And I will be doing this through multiple different ways, taking advantage of the technology that we have accessible at our fingertips by doing a weekly live stream every single Saturday evening, updating people on what's happened in the legislative process the prior week and giving a heads up for what is to come for the next week. I'll also be doing Q&As during these live streams where I actually listen to people's questions and concerns and then answer those questions and concerns and try to do my job to understand where people are coming from. Another important thing that I'll be doing is I have pledged to do 12 town halls per year where I actually come to my state, talk to Arkansans, and listen to their concerns. That way, I can relay those concerns into Congress to make sure that we're uh, creating legislation and passing bills that are going to benefit the working class families, the people of Arkansas, and of course, all of America.
Thank you, Dan. And Dan just mentioned about Juneteenth. I just wanted to remind everybody that President Biden did sign Juneteenth into a federal holiday, and I believe was that on June 19th, right, Dan?
It was actually, I believe that was on June 18th, the day just before. So we got to celebrate the very first federally recognized Juneteenth this year, and it was amazing.
Right, that was pretty awesome. Yes. All right. So my next question, and then Aaron will have his. We're gonna alternate back and forth. And to those, I think I have about maybe another 4 to 5 spots. If you would like to ask Dan any questions, it's your lucky night tonight. And just click request, and I'm gonna add you as a part of the speakers, and please be kind and respectful and let Dan finish until you ask your question. Okay. So my next question for you, Dan, is what about you and your experience qualifies you to be in Congress, holding political office? What are your strengths and obviously your weaknesses?
So that's actually a very interesting question because if we look at our current politicians and the state of our country, what has been the prior qualifications to serve in Congress? I mean, we've got a majority, almost most of the people in Congress, they're lawyers. Uh, what is the qualification? It's a very interesting question again because that prior and what we commonly think of qualifications to represent us, it's failed. Our representatives aren't representing us. They're raising our taxes. They're creating legal loopholes for tax evasion for their own special interests, for billionaires and for giant corporations. A lot of these people, I would even say, are unqualified to represent people because they've sold out. And I think what qualifies me the most for this position is that I am a working class person. I understand the struggles that people go through. I've gone through almost all of those struggles myself. From having to live paycheck to paycheck to having to budget our finances to figure out how we're going to pay for food and how we're going to pay our rent. I mean, during our last pregnancy, we were on WIC, so of course I understand what it's like to go through the bureaucratic loopholes to obtain these assistance programs and the embarrassment it is when you're on Snap to have to stand in line at the grocery store and try to pick the lane where there's not many people in it because it's going to take like 5 minutes and you're going to get those dirty looks while you're getting checked out and they're going through that whole process. I know what it's like to work 7 days a week, 50, 60, 70, even 80 hours a week, just to be able to try to better the life of my family. And I think having that understanding and that empathy gives me all of the qualifications required to be able to listen to someone, to understand their concerns and the struggles that they are going through in their lives, and to be able to translate those struggles into legislation that's actually going to start helping those families, to help alleviate some of those struggles and make their lives just a little bit, or hopefully a lot more, um, happy and just better quality of life for people. I would say, what some of my strengths are, of course, is the understanding. I was a cable guy for 5 years. If you ever had problems with your internet, TV, or phone, I'd be the guy that they'd send over to fix that. And so that gave me the opportunity as a contractor to go to thousands of people's homes in California. I've worked in the Bay Area, Southern California, uh, Nevada. I worked in Reno for many years, even Wyoming, and here in Arkansas. And by doing that and going into so many homes and talking to so many people, it's given me a better understanding of the large, diverse group of people that we have here in our country and, the different struggles they're facing. I was a really good cable guys. I'm the guy that they would send out if your TV was pixelating and you had 10 people come out or your internet's not working and you have like four people come out and they're like, oh, it's just the modem. Won't you turn the modem off, turn it back on? We'll give you a new modem. It's all good. And then, of course, it works for a day, but it stops. I was the guy who would come out and I would fix the problem permanently. I was really, really good at troubleshooting, but I was also terrible because I'm also the guy who'd fix it in 10 minutes and then I'd be sitting there for 30 minutes or an hour talking. So I think that.
What? Yeah, well, Dan, I'm not sure our some of our listeners, Dan mentioned about, he was on WIC. I'm not sure if everyone knows what that is, but I can certainly share. WIC is basically a welfare program, and the reason why I know is because I was raised through welfare. To those who know me personally, I was raised by a single mom. I was very, very poor before I became the whale in crypto that I am today. Raised by a single mom. I wore secondhand clothes. There are, I think, a couple of media journalists wrote that story about me. So that's what WIC means. And I feel for you, Dan, because seems like we came from the same hood, and I'm glad that you're one of us. So Aaron, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, and I was going to say also, actually, two things. Number one, thank you so much, Dan, for doing this. I'm already learning a lot. It's good to hear you and your perspective. And also, my little sister, in fact, all of us, we were raised and fed by WIC. So definitely feel you there. And yeah, I was going to ask you. I was curious, what are you maybe most looking forward to learning, or maybe also what have you learned through this process? Of running, and what do you look forward to learning when you actually become uh, a senator or in Congress?
Well, I think learning is something that we continue throughout our entire lives. It's something that we never actually stop doing. Um, Running for office, I mean, I've learned so much. Oh, I've learned so much. I've learned so much that sometimes I wonder if I would be happier if I was a lot more ignorant, because ignorance is bliss. But I've learned that hard work can pay off as long as you're doing that hard work in a way that benefits your family and your community. Um, I've also learned a lot about corruption. A lot of the reason that I'm running for office is because I see the corruption and because I want to put an end to it. I believe that our government is supposed to be by the people, for the people, not by special interests for special interests. And I did actually run against Senator Tom Cotton last year as an independent. And as an independent, it's a lot more difficult to get on the ballot, just even for people to vote for you. So we had a Democrat on the ballot against Tom Cotton, and 1 hour after the filing deadline for U.S. Senate to run against Tom Cotton, the Democrat dropped out. It was a big scandal. He was blackmailed out. But what it did was it created a very unique moment in history where we had a Republican incumbent for a federal seat without a Democratic challenger. So this really opened up my opportunity and my chances as an independent to actually win that race and to beat Tom Cotton, who some would say is one of the most unpopular and unfit senators serving in America. And in order to get ballot access, I needed to get 10,000 signatures. 10,000 verified signatures, which really means you have to get like 15, 16, 17,000 signatures because normally you only have a 50 to 60% validity rate with your signatures. Well, let me try to cut this long story short. As an independent, I had to collect signatures in a fixed 90-day window of February 1st through May 1st of 2020. And as y'all know, COVID-19 just upturned every one of our lives. And on March 8th, our governor declared a state of emergency, and people started hoarding toilet paper. They started hoarding groceries. Everyone was staying home and self, and it made it impossible to get the signatures I needed to get on the ballot. So I took the next step and I actually reached out to every other independent candidate running for an office in Arkansas for a local, state, and federal office. And we all came together and I wrote a petition and we sent it to the governor asking for relief, either a reduction in the amount of signatures we needed, reasonable alternative to allow digital signature collection so people could sign from their homes. And the governor ignored us. And after the governor ignored us, I sued our Secretary of State, John Thurston. And when I sued John Thurston, his defense counsel was our Attorney General, Leslie Rutledge. And now I learned real fast about what corruption is and what the good old boys club is because unfortunately, Tom Cotton had actually given monetary contributions to our governor, our Secretary of State, and the Attorney General. So all three of these people that we were fighting against have already taken money from Tom Cotton. And the attorney general was able to delay our case. We were trying, this was back in July of last year, well before the election. And we were trying to get ballot access to make sure that Arkansans had an alternative to vote for besides Tom Cotton. Um, we filed our expedite, our first one, on July 9th to get the hearing done before the election. And on July 10th, the United States Attorney General William Barr came here to Arkansas and had a meeting with the Attorney General Leslie Rutledge and Tom Cotton. It was a closed door meeting. There were pictures of them going into the room and things like that. And real fast, we saw the kind of corruption that was happening in our state in order to keep me off the ballot to make sure Tom Cotton would run unopposed. Um, but seeing firsthand things like this happening, realizing that realistically democracy is just an illusion, that there's so many different things that are going on behind the scenes to try to prevent people from even being able to vote. That's a huge motivation for me. I really want to make sure that we start to have clear and transparent elections where every single person has the opportunity to vote. And I think that using technology is going to be the best way to accomplish this. I'm a younger guy, I'm 34. A year older than Joe Biden was when he first got elected into the Senate. And because I'm a younger guy, and I mean, I was a gamer for many years, I do crypto mining, I work in IT. I see the benefits that technology can have for our country and for our electoral process. I would like to see everybody be able to automatically be registered to vote at 18, and they should be able to vote from their phones. There's absolutely no reason why someone shouldn't be able to vote because they have to go to work and they can't get the day off, or because a polling place is too far, or because they went to a polling place and they stood in line for 5 hours and said, screw it, I'm out, and they just decided not to vote. Um, Man, I feel like I kind of got off a little bit.
No, that was great, Dan. We're beginning to have some questions now. To the speakers, if you have a question, just go ahead and click this emoji here, so that so that as soon as Dan finishes, you're welcome to ask your question. I believe Doge Dollar, you have a question for Dan, and so you can unmic your mic on the bottom left. There were a few requests to be a speaker, but I believe if your profile is locked, I cannot approve you. Twitter doesn't. So check your profile. If it has a lock on it, which I am talking to you, Orlando Rivera Camacho, I cannot approve you because your profile is locked. So please unlock your profile if you want to be speaker. All right. Question. Doge Dollar. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Dan. This is Doge Dollar here. So it's the first time I ever heard of you personally.
Mhm.
I'm not a big political person, but I do follow over the years of how people get elected, and normally they would say things that they need to say because the mainstream want to hear them say, and
Yeah.
then when they get into the Senate or the House or whatever seat that they are trying to run, they get in it and then they get overpowered by the majority. So
Yes.
my main question is, how would you approach? I know once you get in, if you win, and I hope you do, that how will you approach the cryptocurrency and try to sell it to the Senate that it's the future. It's comparing it with the dollar, the U.S. dollar, uh, and how can you implement it in everyday, or how can you get them to understand what it is? And because we need young mind, young people in there, and you're 34, you said,
Hmm.
and that's a great thing because John F. Kennedy was, if not, he was the youngest president, and he brought in a lot of stuff, but they took him out,
Yeah.
and it's kind of dangerous. You're walking into a room full of grandpas, and I just want to hear how would you approach this when you're coming into a big room like that full of experienced people in politics as well as currencies and try to promote crypto. Thank you.
I mean, those are all so great questions. Thank you so much. All right. So, one of the problems with politics and politicians is that immediately after winning your election, a lot of politicians begin thinking without taking a break or a breath, how am I going to now keep my job and get reelected? So, I've already overcome that burden by pledging I'm not going to run a reelection campaign. I'm not going to spend half of my time working for you trying to keep my job. I'm going to spend my entire term working for my constituents. I will not have to worry about taking bribes from special interests in order to keep that position because 86% of the time the candidate with more money wins. That's why they take these bribes. I will just serve my one term. And if I'm doing a good job, my constituents will know who I am and I won't have to run a reelection campaign. My name will be on the ballot. And if you think I'm doing a good job, then vote for me. But I'm not going to waste your money trying to convince you that I'm doing a good job. And I support term limits. I've signed a term limits pledge. And as far as, how do you get in, with these seasoned politicians who are more interested in keeping their jobs than actually helping the benefit of their constituency? Um, I'm going to really push for transparency. We do not have a lot of transparency in the Senate. Bernie Sanders tries to do a really good job keeping people up to date with what's going on. But even with him and his busy schedule, there's still a lot of transparency that we're lacking. And I'm going to bring the people's pressure to the Senate. I'm going to make sure that if a senator is pushing policy that is going to hurt their constituency. A good example would be like, trying to ban cryptocurrencies, then it's not in the benefit of their constituency. It's more in the benefit of the rich people who want to keep the value of the USD the same by keeping the majority of our currency focused in centralized banks. I'm going to make sure that their constituency knows who this person is and how he's voting that is going to damage these families. It's everyone's talks about compromise. You hear a lot of politicians trying to compromise. We saw that a lot with this last infrastructure bill. Compromise, compromise, compromise. But compromise just isn't going to work anymore because we've compromised ourselves to the far right. We have compromised the people out of the political process. And I believe that when I do get elected and I am in the Senate, that without having to worry about how I'm going to get reelected, I can start to light fires. I can make a lot of noise and I can make sure that anyone who is serving in a position like that without honor, without integrity, and without their full constituency's best interests at heart, then I will make sure everyone knows. And like you said with JFK, it is a dangerous game. One of the things I support is abolishing the CIA, and those very words are probably what got John F. Kennedy assassinated. It's not easy. There are a lot of risks involved. And before I even decided to run for office, I had many long conversations with my wife about the risks. And she really did not want me getting into politics at all. She hates it because she doesn't want to have to worry about those risks. But just seeing everything I've seen and looking at the state of our country and the state of so many families when 40% of Americans are making less than poverty level wages, when 500,000 Arkansans here in my state are food insecure, yet our representatives continuously vote to cut programs like SNAP and CHIP and WIC and these different programs that help people even eat food. It gets my blood boiling, and that's my motivation for moving forward. My daughter, I would say she's my biggest motivation. I look at our future generations and what they're going to have to deal with when it comes to um, working for poverty wages, when it comes to worrying about the environment. Look at what happened on the West Coast right now. We are seeing a climate catastrophe, hotter temperatures being recorded in Portland, Oregon, than have ever been recorded in Austin, Texas. These are absolutely terrible things that our children are going to have to live through and have to deal with. And the motivation's there. I understand the risks. I've accepted the risks, and it's not going to deter the fight that we must bring forward in order to make this country the kind of country we want to grow our children in.
Wow, thank you, Dan. That was I can feel the passion coming from those words, and your family, your wife. I know it's a huge decision to step into politics, as you've just explained, and definitely you're a millennial. Just as we share, our discussion with Christine last week, she too was a millennial. And I've shared with a lot of folks within the crypto space that we do need millennials and up to maybe younger Gen X to get into the political arena, because we need some of the boomers to exit because they don't know much about technology. They don't want to learn about the new technology, but they're there to make the laws, which sometimes it doesn't make sense. So, Aaron, I believe you have another question. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, and thank you again for what you're talking about. It's really I don't know how to even say it, inspiring that you're willing to put yourself out there. Because yeah, the way I see it is you get into politics, and I'm sure so many people go in there with like these amazing goals, and they want to change so much. And then you have to play the game. You have to make friends. You have to stay in there. You have to keep your position. And that transparency that you're talking about, it's probably kind of scary sometimes, where like you saying something or calling something out could, who knows what the repercussions could be. And so I think it's really awesome that you were saying earlier, for also for people that weren't here in the room, that you do live streams. I believe, is it once a week?
Yeah, I do a weekly live stream every Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Central, campaigning, when campaigning allows. And I'm actually going to be changing my time probably to like maybe Friday after work or something like that as I begin campaigning on the weekends. It's not easy being a working class candidate because while my opponent is out there touring the state Monday through Friday during work hours, I'm sitting behind a computer screen running scripts and automation during that same period, and I only have the weekends to actually go out and campaign.
Where do you stream at?
I stream on, oh man, I stream through Haps, and through Haps it streams on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. So yeah, my question was actually going to be about crypto, and it's pretty simple. It's just how did you discover it, become interested in it, and maybe a little bit about your experience with it so far.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I first discovered cryptocurrency, I would say probably back in like 2017. There was the whole Bitcoin craziness where it went up and made, literally it made office staff and it made waiters into millionaires, and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Watching people be able to invest the small amount of wages that they're making working full time bettering our society and turn those wages into something that can pay off their mortgage or pay off their car, or pay off their student loans. It just blew my mind that there was an opportunity for working class people to seek that financial freedom and independence. Um, I first got into investing in cryptocurrency with Dogecoin. Back when it was 0.0022, I'm like, okay, Bitcoin went up, this can go up. I've got my phone bill that's coming up, so I'm going to put some money in Dogecoin. And I was, of course, still skeptical at the time, and I invested $100 in Doge. I got like 43,700 Doge or something like that, and it went up to 0.004, and I'm like, yes, I just doubled my money. That's my phone bill, and I used my paper hands to cash out. I wish I had diamond hands at that time, of course. But it was just really amazing to be able to have that feeling of, wow, I'm just a regular guy and I was able to just invest in a cryptocurrency and pay off a bill, and that was just a huge moment for me. I mean, since then, I've been trying to find ways to get my family financially independent. So we were looking at ways to invest rather than just investing in crypto. And that's when I started doing Ethereum mining. And Ethereum mining was so great because I basically built a money machine. I mean, we talk about money growing on trees. Well, why not just build a machine that can make money for you? And that was, a way that we were able to pay off some extra debts, help with credit card payments, and I have full faith in cryptocurrency at this point. I mean, blockchain really is the future because it takes the handling of our currency, and it takes that out of the hands of centralized banks and it puts it into the hands of regular people. And it helps because, I mean, banks are some of the largest businesses in the world. If you ever go to a large city, look for the biggest tower, and it's probably a bank. And that's because they're taking money from people with transaction fees, with overdraft fees. I think, was it Bank of America? They made like $3 billion in overdraft fees last year or something like that. I mean, these banks are literally robbing the poor. So why wouldn't we seek a different alternative where instead of penalizing poor people for being poor, we're giving them the opportunities to have a currency that is not only going to uh, not take money from them or lower the value of their currency, but to also give them the financial freedom of watching their investments grow at exponential rates. I mean, if you take $100,000 and you put it into a regular bank savings account, it's going to go up what? Maybe like 1%. Some banks 0.5% a year. And now you have the opportunity to put money into something. And again, this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. There's no legal obligations to any of this. But now you have the opportunity to invest your money in something where if you would have put your money, even a lot of people got rich just from putting their stimulus checks in March 2020 into cryptocurrency. You can see much faster growth in your finances and in your wealth. Um, I mean, I'm all about cryptocurrency. It's just really hard because, as I had mentioned briefly earlier, it really hurts the special interests. The rich want to keep their money in their pockets, and they don't want to see the money trickle down from the rich to the poor. I mean, that's why they invest so heavily in supply side economics or Reaganomics or trickle down economics, whatever you know it as. That's why they support this so big because it keeps that money from trickling down. The name is just a guise. And we saw with GameStop and AMC what happens when working class people come together to try to manipulate the market the same way that the rich people do every single day. Um, I mean, I was really disappointed with Robinhood, with everything that had happened to the working class at that point, because as the working class started to take a little, an extremely small, minute fraction of the wealth back from the rich went on full offense, and they basically, they halted transactions, they stole that money back. But I mean, there's definitely a lot of threat there, but it's just something that they're going to have to learn to deal with as we find new ways to try to manipulate the markets that they've been manipulating for decades.
It is pretty crazy.
You know,
Sorry, not to interrupt, Jenny, but it is pretty crazy. So like my experience a little bit is I started investing, taking it seriously in like September, November, December of this last year, and I was able to
Hmm.
turn a small amount of money into about a year's income. Like I couldn't even, I didn't even know that was possible. I grew up, like I said, like with WIC, low income apartments. You know what I mean? Like we were always struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. And then to know that this is what people have been doing for so long, and that if you have a lot of money, that even for someone that has a lot, a small amount can do so much. The game is so lopsided, and yeah, my main thing right now is just I really want, and I'll fight tooth and nail for everyone to have that sort of financial freedom, right? Where now you can do what you want. You can afford to fix your car. You can buy food. If you need to invest in yourself, you can. And so that's the change that I really want to see happening. And again, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, that was one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about with cryptocurrency, with COVID, and with the massive amount of jobs that are unfillable right now. Is we had people who were working class who were able to take that money and invest it and build their own wealth, who were working, for these really low slave wages. And now, if you've got like 40 or 50 or 100 or 200 or 500K just sitting in your bank account, why would you go back to work for tips? I mean, there's just no point in it. And that's another thing that really scares that ultra wealthy class. And it's just a lot of people don't know how really truly lopsided the market actually is. I mean, if you think about the numbers, it's something like 1% of all stock, or I'm sorry, 90% of all stocks are held by 1% of investors. And over 80% of the transactions done every single day aren't by investors like you and me. They're done by computer algorithms that have been designed to take money from the working class to move that back to the rich. I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with BitsGap, but BitsGap is actually a bot that anybody can use that invests in crypto. And the way it invests is it will actually buy, small fractions of shares, and it will hold on to them until it goes up, and then it will sell them. And if it goes down, it keeps buying. And when it goes up, it will sell them. And I mean, there are there are bots out there that regular people can even use now to invest in cryptocurrency to start building wealth themselves. And these different things really scare those rich people.
Now, I wanted to, make a point here to those, to all of our listeners tonight. I mean, as you're listening to Dan again, uh, we do wish that he will win. Which senator now speak, like him? Mining, crypto. I mean, he is within, the era of cryptocurrency, blockchain, Bitcoin, Dogecoin that we're in. And speaking of wealth, I mean, there are data, out there that says within the next 25 years, we will see the largest wealth transfer in the history ever. I mean, baby boomers have an estimated of $68 trillion that they're going to transfer, but that's not the only biggest wealth transfer in history. It's cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency will also be one of the largest transfer of wealth in the history of the world, probably within the next 5 to 10 years. So it is crazy, and we basically need politicians like Dan, like Christine last week, and next week we have another special guest, also running for a Senate seat herself in Wisconsin. So all of these going to be new changes, and we need to support these candidates if we wanted cryptocurrency to stay and to grow. So to those who are in the room tonight, if you love what Dan is sharing, please kindly give him a follow. He needs all the support that he can get. My next question for you, Dan, also on the topic of cryptocurrency.
Mhm.
The question is, why should we as people adopt and use cryptocurrency? That's part one. Part two is, what problems does cryptocurrency solve, do you think, for individuals, for lower class, for middle class, or even for upper class?
So, there have been, of course, cryptocurrency is still really young. I mean, it's in the infant stages of a currency, and it's in the infant stages of being something implemented into our world, even though as fast as we've seen it, if you compare it to different currency standards around the world. Because we're in that stage, we have come across a lot of issues, and a lot of those issues are being solved. Open source has really uh, helped with that. And we can see that where, originally people wanted to use, say, Bitcoin for different financial transactions, but there were always fees involved. And we all know of gas fees. And they're working on fees, trying to get fees lower, and they're finding alternatives that can be used to pay these fees rather than, for example, using, say, Bitcoin. Like, why would you want to buy, say, a $5 cup of coffee with a Bitcoin and then pay $50 or more in fees? And that's when people started converting and using different things like Ethereum. And that's what we're looking to one day be able to do with, like, say, Doge. If you can get a debit card that has Doge, that's attached to your whatever. you're using for your Doge wallet, then you can make a purchase with, say, Dogecoin, and the fees will be significantly lower. And if anything, the fees will be less than if you used an actual credit card, or if you used an ATM card to withdraw from, a bank card to withdraw from an ATM that isn't with your bank. Um, and man, it's there's just so many different ways that it can really help us by, instead of giving those fees to banks, it gives those fees to ourselves, to our own community. Um, as far as the future of cryptocurrency, I mean, blockchain is the future. And we can see that when you look at these giant corporations that are putting billions of dollars into cryptocurrency, like when Tesla invested in Bitcoin. Uh, Back in the last, when the Bitcoin bubble burst, things were a lot different because it was a lot of speculation. No one knew exactly what was going to happen, and the value just wasn't really there. It was just a lot of FOMO stuff. And now that we have so many large corporations investing in these cryptocurrencies, yes, it may burst a little bit, like we've seen Bitcoin drop down to 30,000, but I I just don't see it ever going away. And as it keeps dropping, you have people like Elon Musk who just keep buying more and more and more and more. And after the whole Wall Street's bet, happened, and we got the whole diamond hands thing going on. People are buying and they're holding, which is keeping the value there. So I do see a future in cryptocurrency. I don't see it going anywhere. Of course, there's going to be new altcoins, and there's going to be people trying to do different things. Rather than proof of work, doing like proof of space and time. Of course, the environmental impact is really big, which is why we've seen like New York stop cryptocurrency mining, and we've seen actually entire nations ban Binance and cryptocurrencies. So there is an environmental impact that we do need to take into account, but people are taking it into account, and they're trying to find ways around this. We have mining facilities that are switching to completely solar energy. We have, I mean, with my own mining business that I have here, of course, I created an LLC. And my wife is an accountant. By the way, marry an accountant if you get into cryptocurrency. It makes things way easier. But through the use of an LLC, you can even take a business loan to put solar on your house to significantly lower the costs of mining. I mean, there are going to be problems, but we have so many innovative people looking to constantly solve these problems and submit new ideas, that I don't see cryptocurrency going away ever. The biggest threat to cryptocurrency is the fact that billionaires like Donald Trump are going to do interviews and call it a scam because it threatens the value of USD. And that's going to be the biggest obstacle. And the best way that we're going to be able to prevent these ultra wealthy special interests from harming cryptocurrency in the future is to help people get into office that aren't going to take money from these special interests, that are going to continue to do things that are what's best for the people and not necessarily what's best for Donald Trump.
Aaron, you have questions,
Sure
Aaron?
do. All right. So, um, government makes this a little bit tricky. They definitely want our money. They and need a bit of that control. And so I'm going to put these two questions together. What problems does it create for the government? And then also, are there any problems that are solved by cryptocurrency?
So I can get into the whole modern money theory, MMT, and talk about how it's really hard for people to understand how the government budgets, because the government does not budget the same way that you budget your household income. It's different because we have our own currency that is backed by a sovereign nation. And because of that, that gives us the flexibility to basically write blank checks for an unlimited amount of money with the only worries of increasing inflation. And as long as we can find ways to keep inflation from substantially increasing and ending up with something like I don't want to say Venezuela because it's a whole different thing. Um, we just have to understand that we're never going to go broke in America. We can't. There's no way. In fact, our country is the only country in the modernized world that actually has a debt ceiling. No other countries have a debt ceiling because the more money that we spend in the public sector, the more money ends up in the private sector. So when the government say, the government spends, let's say, $1 billion on infrastructure, and I'm just using $1 billion as a number, just a fake number. Okay, so when the government invests, say, $1 billion in infrastructure, yes, it increases our debt by $1 billion. But where that $1 billion goes is that goes towards contracting companies, that goes towards salaries, that goes towards, paying employees and things like that. That money comes from our debt and goes into people's pockets. And talking about things like this is very dangerous. They don't want people to understand how it works and to think like this. Um, but that's why whenever they say, well, how are we going to pay for it? Well, it's very easy. You pay for it by increasing the debt and put that money into people's pockets, because when money goes into people's pockets, it doesn't just sit there. If you have $500 in your bank account and or I guess more than 500, if you have $800 in your bank account and the PS5 comes out, you're probably going to buy a PS5, which puts that money back into our economy. Whereas when ultra wealthy people and billionaires get tax breaks like that and they get $1 billion, they send that money to offshore bank accounts to build interest in foreign countries, untaxed. They don't put it back into our economy. So there's a lot of negative sides about the way that we are currently using the funding in America. And when you start taking cryptocurrency into that, what cryptocurrency is going to do is it's going to take it out of the hands of the centralized banks, put it in the hands of the people, and then the people will spend that money, putting that money back into our economy without increasing the debt. Um, it's such a hard question to answer. I hope I was able to at least hit some of those points.
Definitely.
Yes, and again, reminder everybody, if you have any questions for Dan, please feel free to request to be a speaker, and then we'll get you up. Um, let's have Dogecoin Streams. You have a question for Dan? Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey Dan. Thanks for joining us
Hey.
tonight. Just to your point, do you think that the institutional wealth that's pouring into crypto could be potentially harmful for the retail investors like ourselves? A hot topic right now is inflation, and one could say that may be a reason for the pour of institutional wealth into our space, being crypto. But again, do you think that could end up being harmful years down the road for for the retail trader?
Absolutely, because what it does is it makes it so that it makes the value of the pie more, and the fraction that you're getting less. So yes, the more money that is going to flood into it, the less profitability it's going to be for the regular investors that are in it right now. Which is why it's been good over the last year or 2 years. Um, for so many little I don't want to say like small fish, but for so many regular people who have already gotten into it before the institutions came in. But now that the institutions are in there, absolutely, just like you said, it's going to make it harder to get profits for the small guy. And as those institutions come in, they are using those computer algorithms to manipulate it. So we are seeing a lot of manipulation. We're seeing, huge amounts of manipulation, even by wealthy people like Elon Musk, who will say one thing, manipulate the price, and then do a different thing. They can say something knowing that it's going to crash the market just so that they can buy more. And then as soon as it gets back up to normal, they sell it. And in that way, they've actually just taken that chunk of change from the working class and put it in their own pockets. Of course, investing is always a gamble. It's always risky. And as these large institutions see the opportunity, they will use that opportunity to try to make money. And the people that it will end up hurting is the regular investors. Now, this is only a problem if these institutions are buying and selling. If they're just investing, then it's not as much of a problem as long as they keep their dime in hands and don't drop the value. But I mean, personally, I take my profits every time I can. I know I lost a lot of money in that way, but at the same time, I've lowered my risk for my family's investment to make sure that no matter what, we are taking care of our rate of, our return on investment and making sure that we're safe, and then just playing with extra money, trying to take whatever we can when different things come up.
For sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's great. Dan, I'm not sure, maybe you know, but we do have the unofficial Doge CEO in the room. Greg, can you say hi? Greg, Greg, Greg. But oh, there he
I
is.
see. I see
Thanks.
the hand. How's
All
it
right.
going, Greg?
Yeah. So we have. I do have a couple DM questions from people who I guess who have questions for you, but they like. I guess they're shy from being a speaker. Um. So this one
Hmm.
is from Frankie. Frankie wants to ask. Could you, Jenny, ask Dan? Go ahead. Go ahead, Dan.
All I heard was, Jenny, can you ask Dan?
Oh, okay. Uh, Frankie was asking if you have invested in any crypto. I believe you're in Ether and Dogecoin, right? I mean, you exited Dogecoin.
I do have a little bit of Dogecoin at 24 cents right now still that I'm just chilling with, so that when it hits $1, then I can pay off a credit card. That would be nice. I am invested in Ethereum. Um, I really believe that. Well, my wife really believes that Ethereum's going to hit 10K by the end of the year. So we're sitting on our Ethereum still. And then I'm also invested in Chia. I do, I don't want to say Chia mining, I do Chia farming. I've got some Chia plotters and of farmers, and those are the three that I'm in right now. We've thought about, of course, just investing in different random altcoins. I know I've got like $100 in Ethereum Max. $100 here, $100 there, just in case one of those just happens to go up, and we hit the lottery so we can retire, and just those hopes that some people have. I think oh man, I want to say maybe like 6 months ago, we just took $500 that fell into our hands, and that we would be okay living without, and accepted it as a loss, and just put that into a few different altcoins. Because man, you never know what's going to happen. I think when we had put our $100 in Emacs, within like 20 minutes, it was already valued at like 400. And then I think it's gone down since then once Bitcoin crashed. I've got some Hogecoin. I was pretty excited about Hoge, and it went up a lot and then it went back down. And all these altcoins are pretty stagnant right now, with Bitcoin being down where it is. What is it, around maybe like 32K right now or something? But all the charts and the statistics show Bitcoin going to over $100,000. And if Bitcoin does go to over $100,000, these little altcoins like to follow, whether they have value or not. I didn't get into the whole Safe Moon thing. I wish I would have gotten into Safe Moon back when my friends had first told me about it. But yeah, I'm just in a few different cryptocurrencies in very conservative spaces, and I'm experimenting right now with BitsGap. And with BitsGap, basically, it's a bot that automatically does transactions to help grow your crypto wallet. Um, and they do, like, I think even 14-day free trial if you go to Bitsgap. Just search Bitsgap and play around with their automation and check it out. That's definitely something that the more people find out about it, the less profitable it will be. So I'd like to help as many regular working class investors learn about it first. Because I was always like, I want a crypto bot, or I want a stock bot, something like that, something all these rich people use to keep all of their money safe and build their own wealth. But yeah, so Bitscap's what I've discovered recently, and once I'm done experimenting with that, we're planning on putting a little bit of our money from there, or from like our Theta and our Theta Fuel, probably over into Bitscap. Um, but yeah, Theta Fuel, that was my wife's best call. My wife
That
loves
is
crypto.
that is awesome. Now, imagine if we can replace almost like maybe 80% of the entire Congress with politicians like yourself. I mean, just listen to the way that you talk about crypto and altcoins and blockchain. You're the type of people that we need, um, you know in the Senate, in the House chambers, and it's great. And so I have a question from Christine. She would normally come up as a speaker, but she's at somewhere right now that she can't. So she sent me a DM to ask you this question. Christine, can you say hi? Emoji. Okay, that's right. So this question, um,
Uh-huh.
so do
Hi,
you
Christine.
look? Oh, there she is. So her question is, do you look at crypto as an investment where you cash out, like a stock or lottery, versus use cases and actually using crypto every day in the future? Let me see. And like what? Okay. And she mentioned that what El Salvador did and actually made BTC into a
Mhm.
legitimate tender. So did you get that, Dan?
Yeah, well, thank you
Okay,
so
go
much,
ahead.
Jenny, for what you had said, and Christina, great questions. Um, you, we have to understand that in these stages of cryptocurrency right now, it is an investment, it is a gamble, and you always have to have, you have to make your entry and your exit strategies very clear to make sure that your emotions don't delegate what you're going to do with your investment, because that can sometimes cost you a lot of money. But at the same time, sometimes having those diamond hands can make you a lot of money, so it's very hard. All I can say for me personally is, before I invest in something, again, my wife's an accountant, we make sure we look at our entry and our exit strategy before we ever invest and take that risk. And right now, we're more about short-term gains to help pay for different things. Um, and as far as it's really amazing what El Salvador did with Bitcoin. I do see this opportunity with what they're doing, as a way to keep track of it, to get the data, and then to possibly use that as a model for other countries, because they are the ones taking the risk and experimenting. And if that experiment pays off, then it would just, I mean, it would be silly not to model it and continue the same kind of gains that they're making in other places as well.
So Dan, would it be fair to say that you're a short-term trader of cryptos or basically different sorts of investments?
I'm a short term trader. My wife's a long term trader, and she's made more money than me. So,
Yeah, so I mean, I feel you because I sold Bitcoin when it was 27, 28,000, and then it
uh
flew
huh.
to 65 grand. So but I did buy Bitcoin when it was at 3,600 bucks, when it
Uh
went
huh.
down into 2018, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah, so but I believe, really, I mean, if you're a long-term investor like your wife, or short-term trader like yourself, I'm actually a bit of both,
Hmm.
depending on which one. A gain is a gain, I mean, the last time you've mentioned you sold Doge, but you were able to pay a couple bills and probably feel happy about it. Again, happiness doesn't really have a price tag. So if that made you happy, paying off bills, even though afterwards you've probably seen Doge went all the way up to almost 75 cents, hurt
Hmm.
a little
Oh,
bit, but
yeah. But
it
no
is what it
regrets.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no regrets. We never regrets.
Life's
Uh,
too short.
Aaron, go ahead. Ask your next two questions, Aaron, because I think he answered two of mine. Through Christine's
Totally,
questions.
yeah. So yeah, my question is actually about there's so many altcoins, meme coins, and everything coming out. What are your thoughts on those? And then also, maybe more importantly, when it comes to pump and dump and like rug pull projects, should anything be done and to regulate this? And then who should be regulating that?
Very good. Man, y'all have such awesome questions. All right. So, as far as regulation goes, it's really tough because who do you get to regulate this? Are you looking at experts in the financial markets who, historically have worked for the establishment, or are you looking at, investors who are like, you and myself who've gone through it and kind of understand a little bit? It's just hard because once you start regulating it, the regulation never stops. But at the same time, most regulations are put into place to protect consumers and to protect the working class. So that's a really hard question as far as do you start regulating it? I mean, I would love to see regulations personally. I think the best regulation we could do is get rid of all computer algorithms because those are designed to take money out of people's wallets and put it in yours. Um, but if we were to regulate it, I would say the best thing to do would be to put a panel together, a committee of Wall Street financial investors, a committee of, at home investors, a committee of people who have invested in cryptocurrency for a long duration of time and have made a great amount of wealth on it, as well as people who have invested in cryptocurrency for short amount of time and who have lost a lot of wealth in it. um, you just have to have a very diverse group of people because any kind of legislation or regulation that you enact is going to have, of course, unintended consequences that are going to affect families' lives. So, I mean, that's kind of the same way I feel about Congress, honestly, is that right now we have a whole lot of lawyers in Congress, a whole lot of millionaires, a whole lot of rich people, and not enough regular people who understand that, oh, if I were to vote on this, this is how it would affect my family. I don't want it to affect someone else's family that way. I think we need to have a more diverse group of representatives. We need to have educators, we need to have historians, economists, scientists. We need to have more than just a bunch of lawyers who actually don't even, for the most part, write their own legislation anyways anymore. They just have a think tank that donates money to their campaign. Oh, neighbor's dog came out. But most of the legislation that's written now is by lobbyists who give politicians money. They write a bill, and then that politician sponsors it for them. So it's so hard when you talk about regulation because no matter what we do, it will have unintended consequences, whether or not it's in the best interest for the people or the best interest for the ultra wealthy.
Dan, piggyback on what you just said. Do you think that anything is gonna pass anytime soon of what you might have heard as you're running for your Senate seat right now?
It's I think we're at a catalyst right now in our country. We're at a moment where we are going to have change through voting because a lot of these people that are going to be voting on this legislation don't have our best interests at heart. And the only way we're going to get legislation passed that will have our best interests at heart is to replace these bribed politicians with regular working class candidates that are, I mean, I don't want to say incorruptible, but maybe have the same values, say, that I do, where this isn't a job, this isn't a career, this is something that I want to do to make sure that when my daughter grows up, she's growing up in a country that I'm proud for her to grow up, where we don't have to worry about her teachers whitewashing her history because it makes a few people feel uncomfortable, where we don't have to worry about her struggling with trying to get into college to get a better job to make more money, but then having to worry about $100,000 worth of student debt to burden her for the rest of her life, where we can not have to worry about children going to bed hungry because their parents can't afford food and our legislators are voting to cut those same food benefits that they rely on. There's just so many important things that I do not feel like our current legislators care about because they're the ones taking money from all the people that benefit from the way that things are right now. So we just have to get out and we vote. And in order to do that properly, we have to know who and what we're voting for. Two websites that I like to plug all the time: votesmart.org. If you go to votesmart.org, I believe you can even put your zip code in there and it'll give you a list of who all of your representatives are. And you can click on them and you can see how they voted for their entire career, what they voted for, what they voted against. And then on top of that, if you go to opensecrets.org and type that politician's name in, it will tell you where their money is coming from, who's been donating to them, who they've been donating to. So you can see where the money is coming and going and seeing how people are voting in response to that. And it is tedious. I'm not going to lie. I had a great time when I first learned about these websites. I spent like 4 hours, like, oh, I'm putting like, Hillary Clinton, I'm putting in like Joe Manchin, um, you know, everybody, Mitch McConnell, Republicans, Democrats. I want to see where all this money is coming from and going. Yeah, definitely check out those websites so that you can educate yourself on who's representing you. And if you don't feel like they're representing you properly, then look at their opponents, look who is running against them. And you know what? A big problem in Arkansas is politicians running unopposed. We had 66% of our state Republicans run unopposed. We have people who have been in office Republicans who have been in office here in Arkansas. It's not like a diss on Republicans or Democrats, but this is just the Arkansas facts. We have Republicans here serving in our state 2 and 3 and 4 terms who have run unopposed every single time. They have just gone to the Capitol during the filing period, used money from their political party, paid their filing fee, and were not, their name's the only one on the ballot. They don't receive a single vote, and they've been serving for like 8 to 10 years. And that's a big problem. So if you look up who is representing you and you don't feel like they're representing you properly and no one's running against them, consider running for office.
Wow. Dan, you just dropped some powerful information tonight. Certainly, I was helping the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016.
Hmm.
She autographed a book for me. I had a picture with her taken, and she also autographed that for me. So that's basically
Oh,
the pivotal moment of my life. Actually, I was actually uh, at her first when she first announced to run her first fundraising campaign was at Christina Aguilera's mansion up in Beverly Hills, and I was there with 5 or 6 other of friends of mine.
uh-huh.
That was the first night that Hillary locked in $1 million in one
Oh my
shot
gosh.
that night. So
Did you know
it's
her? Well, Bill, he's from here in Arkansas.
yeah. I do know that Bill came from was from Arkansas, and so when Tim, Aaron, and I were talking, and you're from Arkansas, that was the first thing that reminded me of. Is say, oh, that's Bill's hometown. So
Uh-huh.
I wanted to take you back to Bitcoin with
Hmm.
the recent El Salvador, how they were the first country to have, I guess, pass Bitcoin as a legitimate tender. What are your
Hmm.
thoughts about that? And do you think that would ever happen in larger countries? I mean, I'm sure United States is probably going to be last if they're going to be if they're ever going to accept Bitcoin as a legal tender. But do you see, like, I'm beginning to see, I believe what I've heard recently was a number of Bitcoin maxis, or billionaires, you call them.
Hmm.
They would go to smaller countries. I believe one of them got shut down in Mexico, meaning that they went and they gave their pitch, and I think it didn't work. And I
Mm.
believe this was Mexico. So what do you think in terms of, well, you see smaller countries like El Salvador, and I believe there was another one, to accept Bitcoin as a legitimate tender, and do you see larger countries, bigger countries, going to follow suit? What are your thoughts about that?
So I think the big determining factor is, number one, if a country has its own currency backed by a sovereign nation, they're going to be a lot less likely to adopt something like that. Now, these smaller countries that are still using like USD or pesos, or whatever currency these small countries are using, that's actually not their own country's currency. Absolutely, they may as well switch to a digital cryptocurrency as soon as possible. Well, I mean, again, I would say it's great that El Salvador kind of took the lead, so we can use that as a model, look at the statistics and the data to see how they will either benefit or how it will harm their economy. But yeah, these smaller countries, they will be a lot more likely to do it first, and it's going to be really tough with the larger nations adopting something like that, because say if the US adopted Bitcoin as an official currency, then it's going to significantly damage the value of the US dollar, which is going to cause inflation, which can have unintended consequences. At the moment, with the current way that our financial system is. And it's also hard because these nations that do have that large, that backed currency, they will be making sure that their legislators have enough of that currency in their wallets that they wouldn't do anything that would threaten the value of it.
Very cool. Aaron?
Yeah. So I guess maybe to touch on that a little bit more when it comes to government, um, you know, uh, of course, at some point they're going to step in. They're going to want to get involved. They want our money. Um, how does it look? How is it? If it's taxed, for example, if our income is taxed from crypto, does it lose a bit of its significance, its importance? Is it better if it's not involved with the government and we're trading it for fiat, if that makes sense? Or do we want them to have their own possibly cryptocurrency?
And I know that there have been banks, I think it's like Goldman Sachs, that have been experimenting creating their own cryptocurrencies that they can push through the government that way. I mean, the US government, don't doubt that they are trying to create their own cryptocurrency to combat, Bitcoin and other currencies and the success that they're having. Um, it's it's going to be interesting to see what our future brings for us. There's I It's still so young in its infancy stages. I mean, cryptocurrency is what, like 14 years old, compared to other values of currencies. It's going to be a lot of watching and learning and seeing what happens. I just don't have that answer for you right now.
I think Doge has a question.
Yes, thank you. So I was following over the last few months, just speaking on Tesla. Elon Musk tweeted a few months back saying that he's dropping Bitcoin, accepting Tesla, and then, of course, that made the big crash. One
Hmm.
of his remarks was that he blames Bitcoin mining using too much electricity. And then somewhere
Hmm.
I read somewhere else saying that he said that there's too many mining factories in China, and it's just so like disruptive and so big that he doesn't even want to get involved in Bitcoin anymore. Now,
Hmm.
whether he still have them or not, uh, he probably does. But so a few weeks later after that, or a month possibly, the government, the Chinese government, banned crypto trading, and then starting shutting down, cracking down these mining factories all across China. So you know,
Hmm.
we everyone have their own philosophy and thinking as to what's really going on behind closed doors. In my opinion, is I think it's a really good thing, because if Chinese mining factories, like what Elon is talking about, is just so like underground black marketing type stuff, and the government can't stop it, then they might be the one that's going to be controlling a lot of bitcoins in the future and manipulating the
Hmm.
price. So it is a good thing, to in my opinion, that the Chinese government go ahead and crack down these huge factories for mining for now, even though the Bitcoin as well as other crypto coins drop together as a market. But I think it's going to
Hmm.
pave way in the future when Bitcoin makes a return, and like you said, Dan, that it might hit $100,000 by the end of the year or in a couple of years, and bringing back all other coins in the market. What are your thoughts about that? Is it possible that, I guess my question is it possible that Elon is working with the Chinese government behind closed door and saying that, hey, if you do this, shut down all this mining, then I can accept bitcoins again one day, and then at the same time
Honestly,
selling Teslas.
Doge dollar, that's totally speculation, conspiracy. I don't know if you wanted to take a shot at that, Dan, but
Yeah, sure. Actually, I don't
go
mind at
for it.
all. I mean, I can give
Go
my
for it.
opinion. I think it's less likely that Elon Musk is dealing with, say, the actual Chinese government, but I would not be surprised if he was dealing with Chinese billionaires. I mean, the billionaire club, it's a good old boy club. I guarantee you, most billionaires know each other and have all of their own phone numbers in their phones. It wouldn't surprise me if he was working with other billionaires with similar interests, and those billionaires were influencing the Chinese government, no different than our billionaires influence our government. It is a big problem when you start having governments, um, you know, getting into something where they have a giant mining facility, because then yes, it does give them a large portion of the market and allows them to control that market. And miners, or not necessarily miners, but cryptocurrency developers are trying to find ways to combat this problem, to decentralize cryptocurrency mining, which is why I got into Chia. The whole thing about Chia was it was supposed to be if you had some extra hard drive space on your computer, then you can do some chia plots and farm those plots and maybe get a chia coin here and there and make some extra money. Where what ended up happening was the Chinese government, and other governments as well, and data centers started buying up all of the hard drives. And instead of this project being, a regular person at home on their hard drive doing some farming, we ended up with giant facilities mining this Chia coin, to the point where when I first got into Chia, if you had 160 terabytes worth of plots, then the estimate was to get a Chia coin once every day. Whereas now, that was on May 3rd, just a couple months later. At that point, I think it was 2.5 exabytes was the network size. Today, it's over 28 exabytes big. I mean, that is a lot of network space. So it made it unfeasible. So basically, now with my 160 terabytes of plotting space, I'm still looking to get a coin every 1 to 4 months. They're trying to find ways to combat it so that things can't, or so that cryptocurrencies can't be controlled so easily. But it's just really hard when there are not necessarily governments, but people and groups with just enormous amounts of money to invest to try to take advantage of all of these different new methods.
Wow, that's pretty. pretty interesting. Uh, do you accept crypto for campaign donations, Dan?
I have
Is it
never
legal though,
accepted
by the
one.
way? I
You know
mean,
what? It's actually legal for me to keep
Well,
my
that wouldn't be
my
a bad
donation
idea.
account. I could keep my donation account in cryptocurrency if I wanted and let it grow or let it sink. And I would just, the people who donate to my campaign, um, we don't take corporate money. We don't take money from billionaires. Our campaign is 100% individual contributions, and 80% of those are less than $200. And the other 20% is between 200 and 1,000. We've never taken larger than a 1,000 contribution. The limit is 2,800, but we've never received one that large. So I, what I'm getting at is the kind of people donating to my campaign are working class people that work hard for their money. And I mean, it's still an investment, it's a gamble, and I'm not willing to gamble people's hard-earned money. I use their money in the best possible ways.
Dan, you know what? I have a thought. I don't know if you've done this before, but if you create a campaign that accepts Doge coins, man, I bet you will gain a lot of reputation. I mean, publicity. You'll be on CNN as being the first candidate for the Senate to accept Dogecoin for the campaign.
You know what? As soon as we're done with this call this evening, and I am in no hurry, by the way. I'm still at 15% on my phone, and I've got a charger if I need. You all have me until you all are done with me. I will speak with my wife about it. Like I said, she's a tax accountant, and she's done a lot of research into it. I'll speak with her, and that's a very good idea, and it would be very easy just to have a wallet, an address that people could donate straight to. Oh, but the only problem is when someone donates to my campaign, we keep very meticulous files for the FEC, the Federal Election Commission. And if someone was to donate, I would have to find a way to get their name, their address, their employer. um, those are the three big things that the FEC wants. And if people were just donating anonymously into a cryptocurrency wallet, I don't know how I would be able to obtain that information. And the most money that an anonymous donation can be is, I think it's like $25.
yeah,
And
when you
And if
were
I get like $125 donations, the FEC is going to give me a call and be like, "Hey, what's going on?"
yeah, it's funny that you mentioned about $2,800. When I was helping Hillary Clinton's campaign, one of my friends, I believe, well, I didn't know at the time, sent in a donation of $10,000
Hmm.
to her campaign, and at the memo, my friend said Jenny Ta's friend, right?
Oh,
And and then I got a call from one of her like left or right hand people
yeah.
one day, say, Jenny, who is this friend of yours that wrote Hillary $10,000 check? I was jumping up and down for Hillary, right? I said,
Uh huh.
yes, did he really send in 10? And then
Awesome.
and then the next thing was, say, well, Jenny, we have to return it. I said, why? And then they say it's over $2,800. We can't. It's gonna raise a red flag for Hillary.
Uh,
Hillary would love to
yeah.
take it, but so
Uh
that
huh.
was when I learned about the threshold of $2,800. So I call up my friend and I say, well, you know what? If you just spread that 10,000 to a couple people and send it in that way. So
You know,
that's
actually, what you can do is you can donate 2,800 in the primary, and after the primary is over, you can donate an additional 2,800, which is I think like $5,600 is the maximum possible contribution. But
Yeah, and I believe my friend did that. So
uh huh.
Hillary's campaign sent back his check for 10 grand, and
Hmm.
then he sent back a 2,800. And I think when she when she was it the primary? Yeah.
Hmm.
He sent in another check at the end. I believe that that was what happened. Um
Awesome.
but Aaron, we probably have another 10 to 15 minutes. If you have maybe the next 2 to 3 questions of yours, if you could go ahead and ask Dan. I might have one or two more, and then we can wrap it tonight, unless if any of our listeners have any questions, and we can bring them up. But go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, so maybe just a sidestep from crypto for just a second. Universal basic income, UBI, are you for it, maybe against it? And if you're for it, do you have a vision for it?
All right, some Yang Gang questions. Awesome. So I work in automation. Basically, I do quality control for the software for my company. We use our own software, and when software developers come up with new patches every month, those patches come to our servers first, and we test them for bugs. And it was a tedious process. So my job was to come in and automate test scripts to test for those bugs. That way, once the new updates come through, you can run a script and it'll show you if there's any errors right away and things like that. So I specialize in automation. And what that has done for me is it has really opened my eyes to what automation is going to do in the future of our society. Now, by 2035, there is an expected 40% unemployment rate that is going to be in place because of automated jobs. 40% unemployment, what does that mean? What is that going to do? Well, I mean, it was COVID-19 was extremely unfortunate in every single aspect, but what it did do is it showed us what a 40% unemployment looks like, because that's exactly what happened with COVID-19. So expect what happened and from March of May to last year to be a permanent thing by 2035. What we are going to have to do as a society is we are going to have to make some very important decisions as this approaches. We are going to have to figure out, as we automate jobs for corporations so that they can let go employees and save money and maximize profits and balloon profits, really, are we going to allow those companies to make that much more money while they're firing people and people are out of work and not able to find new work? Or are we going to do something like possibly tax those companies that are automating jobs? That way, they're paying the same amount of money as taxes as they would for salaries, but that money can go into a pool for unemployment or for UBI, for the general population, because we're gonna have to decide: are we going to take care of corporations or are we going to take care of the people? um, Before COVID-19, that was my stance 100%, that UBI will be a necessity in the future, but maybe not necessarily now. And then COVID-19 happened, and it really opened my eyes to how important it is to have a universal basic income. That way, we never get to that point. That way, we never have to worry about, do I, how am I going to pay for food? How am I going to pay my car note? And how am I going to put clothes on my children's backs and a roof over their head? I do support UBI. Even since the beginning of the pandemic, I feel that the correct option would have been to give every single person in our country a $2,000 per month stimulus. And if we would have done that and went into complete lockdown for 3 months, then by June of last year, COVID would have been eliminated 100%, and our economy would be flourishing right now. But instead, we didn't. Instead, we got the CARES Act, a bipartisan, or a partisan, not even really a bipartisan, a partisan relief that put a ton of money into corporations' pockets that they used for a giant stock buyback and gave people enough money to pay their rent and their bills for a month. Um, and then, people had to go back to work, and people had to make that hard choice of, am I going to go to work and risk catching this, this disease, this worldwide pandemic, and bring it home to my family, or am I going to not go to work, put my family's health at risk, and then lose everything? And I mean, that was an absolutely terrible decision that no person, especially an American in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, should ever have had to make. We saw Australia did this, and or New Zealand, I believe, and they beat it so fast, no problems. In Canada, the Canadians, I think Canadians had received an average of $66 per day last year throughout the pandemic to be able to take care of their families, and their death rates were nowhere near the 600,000 that we have here in America. And at the same time, Americans, again, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we had given our citizens an average of $6 per day. So we had a lot of room for improvement, and it did give us the opportunity to see, especially in different places around the world, what UBI can mean for a people. And I think what UBI can mean for us is lower, of course, it would eliminate poverty. We would have lower crime. The majority of crimes are poverty driven crimes. And by lowering crimes, it would lower police brutality. It would lower, I mean, it would benefit us in every single way. But the problem with things like UBI, these things are policy decisions. It's not something that has to be, it is a decision that is made. And I mean, think of it this way. Oh my gosh, these figures really piss me off. You could end all of hunger, 100% of hunger in America for $25 billion. $25 billion, not a single child or person in America goes hungry. That's only 3% of our military budget for next year. 3% of our budget could end hunger in America, 100%. To end homelessness in America, $20 billion. For $20 billion, you could make sure there's not a single child or a single veteran, a single person in America sleeping on the street. $20 billion. That's 3% of our military budget. So for 6% of our military budget, if we cut our military budget and took 23 days off, or not even that, if you just reallocate some of the wasteful spending in our military budget, maybe not drop like a $40,000 or a 40,000 pound bomb on a brand new aircraft carrier, or maybe not put $1 trillion into a failed F-35 program, we could do things like ending hunger and ending homelessness in America. But these are policy decisions, and these policies, they benefit the people, but they don't benefit the people making the decisions, donors. So I get frustrated when you look at these numbers because it's unbelievable how easy it could be to end poverty, and it's just not done. But yes, I do support UBI.
Yeah, and it's pretty sad actually. But it's politics, right? I mean, that's why some of us. I mean, I can hear the passion through you, Dan, and I can assure that you're going to be a great candidate because the passion is definitely there. We're going to try to wrap this up in the next 10 to 15 minutes. And we have three questions, okay?
Okay.
We have one from Brent Manuel. If you can go ahead and prepare your question. After Brent, we're going to have a question from Mindset Makes Money LLC. Then after Mindset, Aaron, go ahead and ask your final question. And then after Aaron, I will wrap it up, with my question for Dan. And then we can wrap it up tonight. Brent and Mindset, if you can ask your question as concise and as short as possible, because we're trying to wrap this up within the next 10 to 15 minutes.
So my question for Dan is, what what as a candidate for the U.S. Senate are you doing about accessibility and disability?
I'm sorry, excessive what?
Accessibility and disability for people with disabilities.
Accessibility and ability. Absolutely. Two very important things. As I was actually just at a Pride event in Harrison, Arkansas, we had about a dozen homeless people there who have been unable to find work, who want to find work, who have been stuck with this terrible option as far as even having a shelter in their community. Uh, it just blew my mind. There was a husband and a wife there, and the only shelters in Harrison are women's only shelters. So this couple had to make the decision of, do we split apart so that I can sleep in a bed, or do we stay together because you can't come with me? So I mean, again, like the homeless epidemic is just ridiculous, and that's a policy decision. And as far as disabilities go, I am working with some different disability advocate groups. Some of the things that we're working on has a lot to do with service animals and making sure that law enforcement is properly trained with dealing with calls where people uh, are not all there, where they need to have that special training so that they can show up to a situation and de-escalate it properly, rather than showing up, escalating the situation, and extremely unfortunate circumstances, using deadly force when it's not even necessary. Um, there's the problem is like I said, we are the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, and for so long we have judged ourselves on economic growth, how happy the billionaire class is. But we need to change that way of thinking, and what we need to do, hon, you just let a giant cockroach in right back there. It's on your leg. Oh no. Oh no, she got it. It was a big cockroach. I'm sorry. Um, but what we need to do is we need to start judging ourselves as, how are we taking care of the most vulnerable people among us? How happy are the most vulnerable among us? How happy is the working class? And stop necessarily looking at how well we are doing by just economic growth for the richest people here. I, of course, want to improve education, educational funding, to a lot of the special schools here in Arkansas have an extremely high population of deaf and blind students, and these students don't receive the special attention that they need. They don't have the books that they need. They don't have the facilities that they need. In our state capital of Little Rock, not a single homeless shelter is handicap accessible. Not one. And that is an extremely big problem, which is why I have on my policy page to make sure that every single homeless shelter in America does have handicap access. We need to make sure that I mean, again, we get back to these policy decisions, because we can end homelessness, we can end hunger, but we need to make sure that shelters have food, good food, not mush. We need to make sure that people have warm, comfortable beds to sleep in, and blankets, and warm water, and showers. I mean, we have, what is it, like 3.5 million houses in America that are owned by banks that are sitting foreclosed with nobody living in them at all, and 500,000 homeless people. We have more than enough housing to make sure that there's not a single homeless person here in the country. Because how hard is it, if you're homeless and you want a job, you want to work, you want to start making money so you can buy yourself? Well, I mean, that gets back to the American dream and actually being able to work and afford to buy a house. But if you want to, better your life, how do you do that if you don't have a clean pair of clothes, and you can't take a shower, and you don't have a full stomach, so you're not like sitting there in an interview stressing out like, man, how am I going to eat? I haven't eaten in 2 days. I mean, there's just so many problems. But yes, I do see the pain. I see the struggles that are there, and I will always be here to listen and to talk and to learn on ways that I can help uh, bring those concerns into the legislative process to help alleviate those pains.
Would love to connect with you some more to give some more ideas and insight to you.
Absolutely. My website, it's danforarkansas.com. And if you click contact, that's my phone number. That goes straight to my cell phone. So you can call me anytime. If you feel more comfortable texting me, you can text me. My email is on there, dan@danforarkansas.com. Send me an email. Unlike other candidates, I handle all of my own social media. So you can even just on Twitter send me a DM. I'll always respond, and I look forward to our conversation.
That is so cool. Thank you, Dan. Mindset Makes Money LLC. Go ahead and ask your question, please.
Hello. I first want to say thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Dan, for providing this space and coming out here. I definitely want to give you y'all guys y'all flowers right now. I have a question about the universal base pay. I just feel like for me, I live in New York City, right? And
Mhm.
me and my wife, it probably costs us about $4,000 a month just to live, and we're not talking about crazy expense. We're talking just like rent, light, gas, water, the necessities, right? And
Yeah.
And I have we have we have two children that live here. We have a child that lives in another state, and I think like how do people choose the exact number on what everybody receives, right? We all live in places
Hmm.
where it costs a different amount for us to live there, right? And I think the thing that really worries me is with if we're receiving exactly what we need to survive, right? How do we elevate then? How do we get to the next level? How do we truly invest in the future and stuff like that? How do we grow? Like, doesn't that kind of keep us in the same space, all of us in the same space? Like, how do we how do we move in that roadmap?
Yeah, no, I mean that's a great question. Um, I think the first place to start with that is it's really hard because the cost of living is so significantly different in many places. I mean, I live here in Arkansas. My wife and I, we bought our first house after renting my entire life and saving up for many years. We paid $200,000 for a 2,200 square foot house, um, which is, I mean, I'm from California. That is super cheap. If we had stayed in California, I'd have never been able to buy a house. So the cost of living um, is very important to take into consideration. The average household income in Arkansas is $48,000 a year, and many of our counties, I believe it's like we have like, gosh, I don't want to get these numbers wrong. I think 67 counties here in Arkansas, and I believe over 15 of them have household incomes of less than $30,000 a year. So when you look at UBI and how much is it going to be, yes, $2,000 a month would change lives here in Arkansas. But what about in New York or say Seattle or LA? Um, it's not going to be, I mean, it'll help. Absolutely, it'll help, but it's still not enough to make the kind of difference that we need to do what needs to be done. And what needs to be done is we need to create a path towards the American dream, a path towards financial freedom and independence where you don't have to worry about working for the next 60 years to retire for 2 years and then die. So, how do we figure out what the perfect amount is? I don't have the exact answer, but I have ideas. I mean, I think the best way to do it is to take into account the cost of living for the areas, and maybe it would be a lot of work. But you know what? We have 300 million people in our country, so I think we can figure out how to create a team of people to do this. But what if we broke it down by county, and that way, depending on what county you are, they can figure out what the amount would have to be to help ease the burden of the working class. And how does it, help us from moving forward in the future? Man, anything helps. The biggest problem with UBI and struggle that I see coming from it would be inflation, because a lot of renters, if they're like, well, we were charging say $1,000 a month for rent, but now we know you're getting $2,000 a month for free. So you know what? Now we're going to charge you $2,000 a month for rent. That's going to be one of the biggest problems. Same with like gas at the pump. So, well, we were charging $5 a gallon, but now everyone has more money. So now we're going to charge $7 a gallon. So we have to be careful if we find ways to implement things like UBI that we do not allow predators to take advantage of the situation, so that that money isn't indeed helping families, but it's just helping, trickle back up into businesses. Um, and I mean, I'm from California. I grew up in California, and one of the I support a livable wage and raising wages, ending right to work, things like that, because in California when I was a cable guy, I could make $2,500 a week, which is a freaking ton of money. I mean, I was working like 80 hours a week, working my butt off, but I could make that much money. And then I come out here to Arkansas and I'm doing the same exact work, the same exact stuff every day, 6 days a week, 80 hours a week, and I was making like $600 to $700 a week. And you know what they told me? They said, "Well, the cost of the living is less, and that's why we don't pay you as much." But you know the difference? Yeah, in California, it did cost more to live. We would pay around like $4,000 a month for rent and food and car and phone and all of those different things. But we could make over $10,000 a month. So we were still able to put 5,000 a month in the bank. And we come out here and yeah, the bills are less. The cost of living is less with rent and food and everything. It's only $1,000 a month. But if you're only making like $3,000, you can only put what, $1,000 in the bank. So these are all, like your question, these are all things that I am thinking about, that I do understand, that I have dealt with personally, that I want to fix so that other people don't have to go through these same different struggles.
Thank you very much, man. And I love that you didn't like try to make up an answer. That was like the best answer you could have gave, bro. You make a brother want want to move to Arkansas, man. Yo, I hope you win, bro. Yeah, man. I appreciate y'all. Yo, y'all have a good night. Thank you again, man. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, you too, man.
Aaron, your final question for tonight for Dan.
All right. So I'm actually going to slip in a little bonus question, maybe a fun one. I think I heard you. Maybe you want to correct me. Did you say that you were a gamer earlier or at some point?
Yeah. Yeah, man. I played World of Warcraft for about 4 years, all the way from beta testing till like Lich King. Played too much World of Warcraft, and then I got out of PC gaming. Had to lose all that weight that I put on from gaming and get out into the real world. And then after that, it was mostly console gaming with my friends and stuff like that. Guitar Hero, Call of Duty. Um, for the most part, now, if I ever have free time, I just do console gaming on my PS4 Pro. I'll play like Smite, some MOBAs, Battleground Arena stuff. I like Path of Exile. I cannot wait. Oh my gosh, for the Diablo 2
Yeah,
remake
me
coming
too.
out. Uh, it's gonna be legit, man. Take me all the way back to like middle school days.
That is awesome.
uh,
Yeah. So that's a great answer. And so, like, my real question actually had to do with people in here might be interested to know that you mine crypto, and I was curious, if you wanted to tell your sort of story about like how you got started, maybe like what your first rig looked like, and how that's evolved over time. Some tips and tricks for people who maybe want to get started.
yeah, for sure. No, the best tip and trick is don't get started right now. Everything is so expensive. Oh my gosh. Um, I mean, I'm only running a couple rigs. I get about 600 mega hash right now. It's nothing to write home about, but it's enough to help with bills. Um, I mean, I've got a few different rigs. I have a RebTech rig, which is wonderful. RebTech is a great motherboard that had come out, and I mean, it just works phenomenally. I rarely have to check on my RebTech rig. I think I've got four 3080s and four 3070s on it, and I run Hive OS, and I that, like I said, that rig gives me very few problems. It's very stable. Then I have another rig. It's an Asus X99 workstation server motherboard. Um, I run four 3060s on that one, and I got the X99 board because it has I think it has seven 16 times PCIe slots on it. That way I could use what is it? I think it's like 705. um, Gosh, it's been a while since I installed that driver, but I put that awesome driver that leaked on it so I could get my 49 mega hash out of each of my 3060s. And I'm also using that rig for Chia plotting. And so on that rig, I went ahead and I put 128 gigs of DDR4 3200 RAM on it and overclocked it with XMP. It's got like, oh man, I don't even, it's got like a Hewlett Xeon processor on it with 18 2.4 gigahertz cores. So it's a pretty beefy computer. And with that guy, I've got two 3.2 terabyte Intel, I think they're P4610 hard drive, NVMe hard drives on them. And with those two 3.2 terabyte hard drives, they can do about 34 plots per day. And then I actually have everything networked with an SFP plus setup. That way I can get my 10 gigabytes between my miners and my farmers. And then I've got a different plotting rig, and that one's it's just like a Ryzen 3950X. And with that one, I've just got I think 64 gigs of 3200 RAM, and that one is overclocked as well. And I've got my two 3.2 terabyte P4610s in there that are also doing. I think that one actually gets like 35 plots per day. I can't figure out why it gets an extra plot other than the other, rather than the other board. Um, and inside that one, I've got one 3060 that's running, getting me my 49 mega hash out of that guy. And then I've got a third rig that I have set up with I think it's a Ryzen 5950. And that guy, it's also 64 gigs of RAM. And that's my farm where I've got 160 terabytes of Red Pro 16 terabyte hard drives. Um, and then I've got one extra 18 terabyte hard drive in there to make up for the space, because unfortunately a 16 terabyte hard drive really only gives you 14.5 terabytes of space. Um, and yeah, that one's got a 3060 in it as well. And I would say, if you are going to get into crypto mining, the hardest thing to find right now are graphics cards. And one of the things that Nvidia has done is they had limited hashed their new graphics cards. So just be very, very careful. If it's something you want to get into, that the card you're not buying is hash limited, because you're not going to get your money worth out of it. um, it's just so hard to find the freaking cards. I went ahead and I've got enough RevTechs and PSUs to go ahead and run 40 more cards. If I could find the cards, I've got everything I need just to plug them in and get them going. But it's so hard to find graphics cards. And so, yeah, I would just say right now, if you want to really put money in crypto, I'm not a financial advisor and this isn't legal advice. You're probably better off investing in crypto at the moment until the price of graphics cards go down. If Bitcoin does continue to drop and Ethereum does decide to go way down and people start selling their old used graphics cards, that would be the best way to get into it. But I mean, it's a huge investment. You're looking at spending 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 to get a rig going. And the rate of return on a lot of these rigs now is up near a year because it's so expensive to get everything. Even when we got our 3080s, I think we paid like $2,500 a piece, and these cards MSRP at 800. It's just insane. Um, Now it's a different story. If you got into it a couple years ago, you're probably sitting pretty happy right now. But it's all, a project for me. I've always worked with computers and like computers, so it's something that I could do to put together to spend way too many hours working on. And if you want, I have no problem taking pictures. I have a lot of pride in my rigs. I think I made sure they look good.
Is a side question is
So
is maybe something like a 1080 Ti something that you could get started with also, because that's what I've got.
I mean, of course, you can get started with whatever you can get your hands on. There's a lot of different calculators out there as well that you can put in, like, if you have, say, five 1080 Ti's, how much is it expected? How much will I be expected to make from it? Um, and it can give you kind of an idea on what you're willing to spend in order to get to that return on investment. But you also have to be aware right now, with it, at least mining Ethereum, that is it the EIPI? Is that what it is? EIP. It can change the way that mining profits are going to happen. So it's 1559. EIP 1559. Yeah, but once the Ethereum 2 and all that stuff starts to come out, it may impact return. A lot of people are saying when they reduce the gas fees that mining is going to die. It's just hard because it's all going to be speculation at this point, because as gas fees go down, there are going to be more users and the bandwidth will go up. So it's hard to say. All I can say is just make sure you look at the risk, you measure the risk with what you can afford in your own finances. Make sure you figure out what the rate of return is going to be, how long it's going to take, and always be expecting when you invest your money to lose it, and don't invest anything you can't afford to lose.
Thank you so much.
Well, so, wow, did you guys hear all that? I mean, besides you can DM Dan about political questions. The guy is totally technically like advanced. He knows his stuff, Bitcoin mining. I'm just literally blown out of my mind about you tonight, Dan. That is just so awesome. I wanted to put the attention to Tim, the Dogecoin militia. Tim, I did send you a quick invite if you want it to. We're wrapping up right now because I think we've been in it for 2 hours. So if you want to, then feel free, just click the accept because I just invited you. Here you go. Go ahead, Tim.
What's up, everybody? I'm so glad I'm on time.
Good to hear you.
Hey,
So
good to hear you,
I was
Tim.
just gonna say,
Go
give me
for it.
like a 12-word recap. I'm just
I'll tell
kidding.
you.
I'm just
I'll
kidding.
tell you
I'm
right
just
now. I'll tell you right now.
Uh,
Dan for president. That's it.
yeah. No, no, Dan. Obviously, you and I have talked offline a pretty good amount. There's a reason why we connected so well. And obviously, you know, I'm sure this is just gonna summarize a lot of the conversation that you guys have had so far, but the importance of having people that not just understand or don't just understand the movement, but getting people like you in political office to protect it. That that is there's two massive dynamics to this that it's almost like if you don't protect it, you're going to lose it because at the end of the day, the world is against us when it comes to our government because obviously our government is a very powerful government. And it's going to take people like you stepping up, being the person to put your image on the line, put yourself on the line, your political career on the line. There's just a lot at stake for you, and fortunately there are people like you out there now. And I definitely wanted to just chime in and tell you that the respect is off the charts for someone like you and the speakers that we're trying to chase down that are speaking out for this movement, and understand the value of it, and understand that the power is supposed to rest in the people, and we should we got to have representation that helps protect that. So I just wanted to give you my 2 cents and tell you, man, I cannot thank you enough for being willing to speak up for us, because for a long time, almost forever, and most of my life, I've never felt like I had a voice, and now I got a voice. So I definitely appreciate and respect you for it.
Hey man, thanks, dude. It's my honor. I'm just a regular guy. I see a lot of the problems we're facing, and I have faith that we can change a lot of the negative things that are going around in this country. We really can. It's just going to take millions of people just like you and me standing up and running for office, saying enough is enough, and just taking the fight to them.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, and I think what you know, full transparency on our end, we really want to illuminate the yous that are in this, because you guys are up against the wall when it comes to getting the proper press, or getting the respected PR. The it's sad to see so many people fight so hard to pat down what is really pure, and really what our world is supposed to be built on, which is obviously the freedoms that we have. And we're definitely going to leverage your connections, like we've talked offline. Leverage your connections, because at the end of the day, the network that's behind you that believes in this just like you do, we have to illuminate them. We have to find them. We have to give them the platforms, and we have to be willing to have these conversations, so that we know that it's not just one person. Because at the end of the day, it's not just going to be a one pony race. It's the entire network of those that are willing to stand up. So if there's anything for me that comes out of this, aside from the amazing knowledge that I'm sure you just threw up to everybody here. I can't
Yeah,
with
sorry
that.
if I dropped a bunch of bombs
No,
on
I
you
love it.
all. Opened your
No,
eyes a
it's
bit.
good because it definitely shows that you're not doing the political play, where I'm gonna tell these people what they want to hear, and I hope I got your vote, right? Which is very political. So when you're
Uh-huh.
able to talk the lingo and not just talk the talk, but you know explain yourself and explain why and explain who, what, when, where, and when, and all, like all these things, it just shows where your heart is with this. It's not You're not just trying to schmooze over. You're not pulling the political card and trying to lure people into voting for you, because that's not what you're about at all. So yeah, I definitely want to work on
Um,
expanding that network of people that, if it's a row of 40 candidates, whether it's congressional or senatorial. I mean, we got to illuminate them, and we got to illuminate them hard, and we have to illuminate you guys very, very often. You guys have to be front and center for this thing.
Thanks,
that's
man. It's good working. It's really good work you're doing.
Yeah, totally. I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine. Hi, Michael. I know you came in a little bit late there, but glad you joined. Um, but Dan, I guess we're go ahead gonna wrap up because it's a little bit over 2 hours. My final question for you really is that what obviously we're rooting for you to win, and obviously when and you do win, you will hopefully bring more um, uh, the topics of crypto, Bitcoin, blockchain, to other politicians, and hopefully it would spread from there. But in the meantime, what can we do for you as a community to help you get there? That's my final question.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a lot of different ways that people can help. Some less involved than others. Of course, the best way to help a candidate out right now is using this extremely powerful tool of social media, sharing posts, even just sharing, like this recording right here, because we talked about so many different important things that a lot of people need to know about. But sharing posts is really big. Retweeting, liking posts. If you can get more involved, we need to talk, Jenny, about how we can get the militia involved in helping candidates, how we can maybe even set up like a Discord server where we can all come together, candidates and volunteers alike, and come up with different scripts. And if you're willing to do phone banking, that is huge. And if we can even, just every once in a while, maybe have like say 50 volunteers hop in a Discord channel, and maybe we can do something like raffle away some kind of like so much, however much doge to the person who calls the most people, or do have a, I don't know, figure something out, that we can all come together and we can each other. And you can do that from anywhere. You can do it from California, from New York, from or Canada or Australia, wherever. That's a way that we can come together and help promote not only like myself but other candidates as well. So there's, of course, monetary donations always help. When you're running a grassroots campaign, it's never easy to get events planned different. It does get expensive, especially like say when my opponent John Bozeman, he was endorsed by Trump and got $1 million. That makes it hard. But just because 86% of the time the candidate with more money gets elected doesn't mean we can't do it, because people are polarized here in Arkansas. They are extremely frustrated with what is happening in our state and country right now. A lot of people don't know, but we had one of the worst legislative sessions here in Arkansas in our history. We banned abortion. We banned transgender students from school sports. We made it so that schools can no longer fly pride flags. We made it so that let's see here, some of the other terrible things. Transgender youth can no longer seek medical help for identifying with who they are sexually, or who their sexuality is. They've made it so teachers cannot call a student by their name if it doesn't match their birth gender. I mean, really terrible stuff coming out of here in Arkansas. Stand your ground laws. Um, I mean, doctors can now deny service based on their ideological beliefs. Really terrible stuff. But what this did was it got people in Arkansas pumped up and ready to go and to vote and to change the way of the political climate here in Arkansas. So there is hope here. Um, we just need help. We need to get the word out, and phone banking is great if you are here in Arkansas. I mean, I'm volunteers. I'm always taking volunteers and any help I can get. I will come to you and meet up with you and find ways for you to help, whether it's canvassing and knocking door to door, or whether it's helping me set up a meet and greet in your area so that I can come and speak to you and your friends and your family and answer any questions y'all have. um, there's lots of different things y'all can do to help. So if you'd like to help, just reach out to me. Like I said earlier, I handle all my own stuff. I can get you in touch with my volunteer coordinator and Jenny, Aaron, Tim. Is it Tim? I don't want to get that wrong. I keep
Yes,
thinking
it's
Tim the
Tim.
Toolman. Okay, awesome.
He's a doctor, by the way.
Oh, for
He's
sure,
yes,
Doctor
he's a
Tim.
doctor.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
we all need to get
He
together and create a space that we can y- use to help with phone banking and stuff like that.
Yeah, that is really cool. Great to have you tonight, Dan. It's again your your knowledge, your in the crypto space, your tech technology skills is just fascinating and amazing. Obviously, uh not to mention your political passion behind what you've shared tonight. Aaron, did you wanted to go ahead and wrap things up and share with everybody about the YouTube channel that we have of all of these recordings that we're gonna put on there? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Aaron.
there's a SoundCloud. I pinned it to the top. There's a SoundCloud as well as a YouTube. So whatever way you prefer to get your information, we're gonna definitely keep these posted going. So yeah, and also that way you can share it for people that let's say someone's working or just busy. You can let people know. So yeah, it's at the top. Thank you.
All right. I guess that is about it. Thank you so much for being our special guest tonight, Dan. It was a great pleasure and honor to have you tonight. We're all going to be around, whenever you tweet something. If you wanted the Doge community to be involved, I guess just hashtag Doge Army. Then we'll be there. If everybody who's listening to Dan tonight, if you feel him like how we feel him, if you can all follow him and help him, because we need more people like him to win seats in the Senate, so that cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, which is including Dogecoin, can get to this next level. We need more people like him. So let's support each other, and let's carry crypto and cryptocurrency, blockchain, to the next level. And I know for a fact it's here to stay. But in terms of regulations, which are the next couple of hurdles, we wanted to make sure the right people are in place to write these laws and regulations to benefit the space. So give him a follow, like his tweets, retweet his tweets. That's how we help one another. Thank you so much, everyone, tonight for being here. We're gonna have the recording up maybe in about a few days or a week. We're going to have our next event this coming Tuesday. So follow us as we continue to invite um, young politicians like Dan. And we may have Dan come back too as well in the upcoming weeks too for a follow up. So thank you again, everybody, and have a good night, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan, man. Appreciate you guys.
Oh, the pleasure was mine. Just let me know. I'll be here.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Dan. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. Bye. 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 Thank you.